I'd love for you to speak a little bit about John, maybe how you met him and what he meant to you.
Sure. And like, yeah, man, I would say it wasn't the greatest of circumstances that we did end up getting to become friends, but I feel like John would actually love that. You know what I mean? Like, even in his death, he was bringing people together. You know what I mean? And I really think that he's probably smiling down on us right now. Like, you know what? Like, this happened because of me, and I got to know John last year on tour with Taproot, Tanya and the rest of the gang, from Lydia's Castle. We did a lot of shows in the Northeast with them. And once we all started really hanging out, it was like, oh God, these are some of our best friends now. And when I realized that we were going to be playing with John, I was like, oh my God, like this is crazy. Cause I remember as a 15-year-old, the first time I ever got to see Stained was at the Jackson Crawfish Festival in Jackson, Mississippi. And it was Stained, Papa Roach, Seether, I want to say maybe Buck Cherry as well. And I'll never forget, John came out, and this was right around the time that Chapter 5 had released. And he had this gorgeous orange drum kit, like the shiniest, most polished cymbals you'd ever seen in your life. And I remember when they played Paper Jesus and just watching John that and I was just like and when we finally got to hang out, we started talking more and more, and I walked up to him. I was like, look, this is going to be the one fangirl moment that I have with you. And I told him about that
Let's get it
story.
out
And
of the way right up front.
exactly. And like, he kind of looked at me, and he had like just the slightest smirk, you know what I mean? Like, wow, you remember that. But like, he was just such a sweetheart, man. And like the fact that you could talk to him so easily, and you could see how much he loved playing, and how much he loved being around Tanya and the gang. And he really loved being in Lydia's Castle. He loved the Taproot crew. And it's just every time we were together, I'd stop what I was doing, he'd stop what he was doing, we'd walk over, hang out, give each other a hug. We just had a lot of really great conversations about music, about life, and just everything in general, man. And it was supposed to get to a point to where John was going to be filling in for a couple of shows, that Jared wasn't going to be able to make it to. So it was like, oh my God, we're going to get to play on stage together and rock. And there was just all these plans. And because of all the stuff that we were dreaming about, I feel like that kind of helped increase our friendship. And man, whenever I got the news, like, sorry. We were going on stage. I want to say it was at Rock Lansing, and that was probably like it's weird bringing that back up and putting myself back in that place, but dude, it just took the wind out of my sails. It's taking it out of my sails right now. Just thinking about it. That was weird, because it was like we were just at the start of our friendship. You know what I mean? And I was so excited to see him again. I was so excited to get on stage together, and I didn't tell anybody else. And I think I was the first one to hear about that before we all went on stage. It was like literally we were walking on deck, and I believe it was Macy that was like, "Yo, he's gone," and I just like I don't know, man. It made me play a lot harder that night, but it was like, it was in the back of my head the whole time. And I remember when Tanya hit me up and she was like, "Do you want to come down to Nashville and play this thing?" And I was like, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" And she was like, "Dude, you meant a lot to John," and started crying right there on the spot, because it's like I got asked to play for the memory of one of my childhood bands. Like, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to get all welled up on this, but it's hard not to, because like, man, what an honor that was to be asked to come play a Stain song for the original drummer. And I got to pick Spleen, which is one of my all-time favorite songs. And
That's from the from Dysfunction, right? The major
yes,
label debut.
Yes.
That's
Oh my
a
God.
heavy one, right?
Dude, the first time I heard that song live, oh my God, what a kick in the teeth. Like 15-year-old me, like my jaw hit the floor and
You
I
weren't ready
just
for the rock radiation at 15.
oh no, dude! Like I wasn't, and I wasn't super familiar with that at the time either. You know, it was one of those things. I came into Stained during Break the Cycle. That's when when I was old enough that my mom was like, "Okay, you can listen to this music." Like so it was one of those things that I started discovering them, and then I was like, well, let me go backwards. And then I found it after I saw it live, and I love it when stuff like that happens because like, what song is this? What record is this on? I don't know what this is. And then I got Dysfunction, and that record blew me away, man. And the first time I ever played a song in drop G, such a low tune song, or maybe it's like G sharp or maybe it is drop G. Either way, like it's a fun tune to play, and I just left it all out on that stage, man. I had never met the other musicians that I played that song with, and I think I was the only person that like I drove 7 hours to play one song, but
A lot of
I
the
had
people were from Nashville, right?
oh
The
yeah,
whole
most
Nashville
most of them.
musician community.
Most of them are from the surrounding area, but I remember I looked at Macy and I was like, dude, I gotta go do this. The fact that I was asked is already one of the coolest things that's ever happened, but like they asked me, so I gotta go. Like if this is for Jon, I gotta be there. Man, what a great event that was. My guitar tech and his wife just actually got here right as I got home, and I was like, hey guys, ran up, showered, and everything, but really got to hang out with Jim and Katie, and I got to hang out with Jared Weeks from Saving Abel, meet his wife and their drummer Dave. That whole thing really because like I already knew these people kind of, but like we really got to hang out that night. We really got to know each other, and I got to see a lot of my friends from Lydia's Castle, a lot of friends from the road that I hadn't seen, got to hang out with my boy Jerome from Breaking Benjamin, their TM. Like we got to go have dinner, have espresso martinis together. Like it created just one of the most beautiful evenings that I've had in a very long time. And I know that he's so happy about that because, I'm just one story, from that entire night. And I mean, dude, there was like 400 people there. The place was packed wall to wall, all-star lineup of these musicians. And I know that I'm just one of many amazing stories that came out of that night, all to celebrate the life of Jon, because he meant so much to all of us. When I was an angry young man, Stained was there. Jon's drumming was there to help me through. So that was a very, very special night, and getting to know him was really special just all around.
We had a similar journey into discovering Stained where I was aware of the album Dysfunction, but it was a little too heavy for how young I was at the time. And it was when right here, when Break the Cycle came out, that the 1-2 punch of Outside and then shortly after it, It's Been a While, those hooked me. And I always say that Break the Cycle was the first album I truly loved. Before that, so I was 16 when it came out, and before that album, it's like I would hear my sister who's older playing Nirvana and Rage Against the Machine and Our Lady Peace, and it would pique my interest, but it wasn't my music. And
Right.
and then, like you mentioned, I was a young, angry teenager, and Break the Cycle spoke to me like it was my music and my album. And what's also a funny coincidence is I've seen Stained live twice, and both times we're on that Chapter 5 tour.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so great. Yeah, man, they slammed that night at the Jackson Crawfish Festival, and I was blown away, man. Blown away.